Okay, what are you saying, people, and welcome back to my channel. Now today we've got another weekly forex analysis. So on the screen are the 12 pairs will be analyzed today, but before we get into that, make sure you subscribe to the channel and also leave a like on the video if you're feeling generous. If you haven't already, make sure you follow me on my Instagram account. I'll leave the handle there. So you're posting a lot of different forex advice, tips and tricks, and also trading setups to help you become a better forex trader. So make sure you go follow that, and also check out my Telegram channel. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. But like I said, we've got another weekly forex analysis for you, so let me stop talking and let's get into the charts. First up, we've got Euro USD. Okay, so for Euro USD this week, we saw a nice push to the downside, price band support, and then we saw a nice push back to the upside again for this pair. Last week, I was saying we could be looking for a move into this sort of level and see the continuation to the upside. You can see we did get a move into that level. Price broke actually below it and closed back above it. So a bit of a false breakout there. You can see when we had the bearish candle close below and the next candle close back above, normally signifies a false breakout. And so we could actually be expecting further continuation to the upside for next week for Euro USD. Looking at, if I target this level here on the 4H, so we have a really key level here of resistance. As you can see, if I move this level out of the way, had a really nice push to the downside from this level here. This was our high, lower low, another push there, lower high, and that gave us the move all the way down to that level, all the way down there. So again, a really strong level of resistance. I think we could be seeing a test of that area next week around 1.21881, so sort of around that area. Might actually break above it and tap into this level here. Again, really nice resistance here, which gave us a lot of momentum to the downside. So could see a bit of a break of that and push onto that level. But I do think if you do get above that level and hold, we could be seeing it move all the way back to the highs again for Euro USD, because again, the long term, the higher time frames, monthly, weekly, and even daily, are still very bullish for this pair. So I still think there's further upside potential for Euro USD, and it looks like this small bearish counter trend could be over, and this could be the forming of a higher low. I mean, now we can start to be seeing a bit of a bullish trend here for this pair, and price coming all the way back to the highs and maybe even higher, tapping into around 1.24. So my bias is to the upside now for Euro USD. I think we'll be seeing price go a lot higher. If we do take out this level here, this support here, for next week and USD, I'll probably change my bias. And at that point, I'll probably say expect further continuation to the downside for USD. But again, as long as this level hold and we don't take out that level, I think USD is on its way to the upside. So for next week, expect to see a bit of a pullback. We do have this key level of support here, which will be acting as support. So I might see a bit of a pullback into this area, and then can see the continuation back up to that key level resistance, or maybe even further, and we could be seeing price really take off to the upside for USD next week. But expect to see a bit of a pullback to start off. Key area there of support we could tap into, maybe even pull back into this area, tap back into that support, and then see price take off to the upside. But looking for some retracement to the downside for next week for USD, and then seeing continuation back to this level around here. Next, we're going to take a look at USD JPY. Okay, so for USD JPY this week, we saw a really strong push to the upside, and then price slowly turned bearish towards the end of the week. If I go in the 4H, you see a bit clearer. So we had a really nice push to the upside. Price was looking very bullish at one point, took out these recent highs, and then we saw price fall back to the downside there. Again, I was saying this area will play a really nice role for where we could go next week. I said if we hold into this area, could be seeing a nice push back to the downside, giving us another lower high there in the market, and then we just see price continuing to the downside, creating lower lows, and see a bit of a reversal to the downside. But as you can see, we broke above that level, found support, and then we saw a price take off to the upside, creating some new highs, tapping into this daily area here in the market. So again, a really nice area of resistance, big push to the upside, found resistance there, fell to the downside, creating new lows. So we tap back into that, wicked above it a little bit, and then you can see we fell to the downside quite nicely. So bit of a false breakout there for USD JPY, but now we are starting to turn a little bit bearish here. I think we do have a bit of a trend line as well, keeping us pushing to the upside. So if I connect that wick and that wick there, 2 points there as well, and I just take this along, you can see this keeping us in a bit of a bullish trend here. So I can see maybe a bit of further continuation to come and tap that trend, might see another push, and if you fail to take up that high, I'm probably expecting to see a break of this trend line and see further momentum to the downside. because we are tapping to a very key level here in the market. In fact, if I even go to like the monthly time frame, you can see where we are in the market here. So monthly looking very bearish here, nice push to the downside, but as you can see, very key area here of support. So again, for the most part, this was a very strong area of support on the monthly time frame. Big push to the downside, found support there, big push back up again, and you can see it again, support there, a lot of which from price trying to break through it. Eventually broke through it. Now it looks like we're testing that same area as resistance. So I don't expect USD JPY to push up higher for much longer, and I actually do think we could be seeing a move back down to the lows again for this pair eventually. So I think my long-term bias is still to the downside for USD JPY. So again, we could be seeing maybe one last push to the upside, maybe take out those highs, give us a double top. But I think the bigger move now is to the downside for USD JPY, and could be seeing a move back to the lows again. Again, the trend line is still intact, so we could be seeing maybe another bounce of that trend line, a fifth bounce, another push to the upside. At that point, that could be a really nice place to look for some shorts, because again, I think we could be in a move for a bigger move to the downside. Again, first clear target would be this low here, because again, that gave us a really nice push to the upside. So could see a nice move to the downside from here into that level, break through that. Again, we'll probably be looking at this level here, which again gave us a really nice push to the upside. So bias is now turning to the downside for USD JPY. Might see a fifth test and another brief push to the upside, give us a double top, maybe a false breakout, but I still think we could be turning bearish for USD JPY and seeing a longer push to the downside. So might see another push to the upside for next week, but I think towards the end we could be seeing another big push back to the downside. Again, first target there, second target there, and then we could probably continue a lot further for USD JPY. And next we've got USD CAD. Okay, so for USD CAD here on the daily time frame, as you can see, we have further continuation to the downside for this pair. I believe we finished the week off around this area. We had that wick to the downside, price goes bearish, and as you can see, we have further continuation to the downside for that pair. We had a key level here in the market, so resistance there, support, got below it, retest that resistance, and we had that continuation to the downside. I did say I was expecting to see price get to the lows again. We haven't quite got there yet, so you can see in the 4 hourly, if I draw a line connecting that wick down there, which was our previous swing low here in the market. So you can see we're not quite there yet, but I still think price has got further movement to the downside. I think we'll probably take out this low, see maybe price tap back into 1.25 and see some retracement from then on, because again, a lot of stop loss will be low, this low here. So I think we're going to go and take that level out, create some new lows for USD CAD, and really see this price take off to the downside, because again, monthly, weekly and daily time frames are all still pointing to the downside for this pair. So again, we could easily expect some more continuation to the downside for USD CAD. So again, you can see I had a really nice pullback here in the market, push to the upside, and then price couldn't sustain itself, fell to the downside, and had a really nice sharp move to the downside there. So for USD CAD, we're coming back into these lows here. Might see a brief push to the upside, because again, we are a very strong support. You can see the level of momentum that we had to the upside, a really nice push, creating highs all the way up there. So we might see another push to the upside, maybe even retest the previous high from here. And then I do expect to see further continuation to the downside for USD CAD, create new lows, and seeing the overall bearish trend on the monthly, weekly and daily time frames just continue to the downside for this pair, because again, we are still very bearish long term for USD CAD. So do expect to see a bit of retrace to start the week off, but I wouldn't be surprised either if we would just open the market and just see price just keep taking off to the downside, creating some lower lows from the market open. So at that point, if you were to do that and see a strong push to the downside, we'll probably be looking to see if we can capitalize on a bit of the retracement back to the upside, because again, the market is quite overextended there in the 4H. So again, going to be expecting to see a bit of a pullback to start the week off, and then looking to see price continue to the downside, because again, the higher time frames are still pointing very much to the downside. So USD CAD bias is still to the downside. I think as long as we stay underneath that level there, I think the bigger move is still to the downside for USD CAD. And so I'm going to be expecting to see some lower lows and some new lows for USD CAD for next week. Up next is Euro GBP. Okay, so for Euro GBP on the daily chart, we had a nice move to the downside. Last week, I believe we ended the week here, and I said we'll probably see a breakout for this pair. either to the upside, to the downside. I was probably favoring a move to the downside because, again, we do have a bearish trend in the market, and it's more likely that price is going to follow the trend than go against the trend. So the probability was a bit more to the downside, but then again, we could have broke out either way. And as you can see, we did break to the downside and price took off quite well. I was saying if we do break to the downside, probably see a move into 0.87. As you can see, we did see a move to that area, but again, price was very bearish this week, so we took out that level and went a lot further, and that 0.87 lined up quite nicely with this weekly support here. So that's the support I was targeting. Price just broke straight through that area, actually had a really strong close below, but again, wouldn't take that as a breakout just yet, just because it's just one candle closing below that area. Probably need to see at least two to get that confirmation that we are holding below that area, and then we can be expecting to see further continuation to the downside. But for UGP, you could easily see the next week close back above and see a bigger push, because again, from a weekly point of view, daily and for hourly, we are very overextended to the downside, and the market is again likely to retrace back to the upside. So again, we do have this area here, prior support, that we never actually got a retest of. So there's a possibility we might actually push all the way to go and test that area. But as you can see, we are looking very bearish here. So I don't think we will have the momentum to go and test that area all the way up there. Might see a bit of a retrace, but I think the bigger move is still to the downside for UGP. Again, on the monthly time frame, I was talking about this area here last month, saying if you do get closed outside this consolidation box, we'll see price take off to the downside back to this level here, 0.87. You can see we had a strong close there for January, and you can see February just taking off to the downside. So I do think we'll probably see eventually price come all the way down to this support down here around 0.84. Key support there, nice push to the upside, support there again. You can see we're failing to create higher highs there, so it looks like we're going to see another leg to the downside, especially with the momentum we have there on the monthly chart. So long term, I see price coming all the way down to 0.84, and I think we could be doing that in the next 2 or 3 months. So don't expect to see the movement to the upside for UGP last for too long. I still think the bigger move is still to the downside, but again, we're very overextended here, so we're likely to see some retrace next week, maybe into this area here, maybe a little bit further, maybe to the highs up here. Again, a lot of choppiness there, we could find some resistance there, but then I think we're probably likely to turn back around and see price create some lower lows and just keep on that bearish momentum to the downside for this pair. So for next week, like to see a push to the upside, but I think we could easily turn around and become bearish again. Okay, so up next we've got AUD USD. Okay, so for AUD USD on the daily time frame, big push to the upside this week. As you can see, Friday ending the week off very bullish, taking out those previous swing highs there, creating some new highs. So last week I did say expect to see some new highs this week for AU. Big push to the upside there. Again, didn't expect to see take off so much, but we did see a big push to the upside for AU. So again, my bias long term for this pair is still very much to the upside from a monthly, weekly and daily perspective. We're all very bullish. We broke through this level here, and then we broke back above. So this move was just basically a false breakout, and as you can see, price took off to the upside and create some new highs there. So again, long term, very still much to the upside. You can see from a monthly perspective here, we broke back above this key support here in the market. So again, treating that as a bit of a false move to the downside, spike below, spike back above, retest that support, and I think we're going to see a move back into this level here, so around 0.81. So again, AU I think is still on its way up to the upside to this key monthly target here. Really nice area of resistance where we saw the market take off to the downside. I think we're going to go and tap into that area there from a monthly point of view. Obviously might take another 2 or 3 months to get there, but I think long term that bullish trend that we're seeing for AU on the daily chart, that seems just to be going on forever. I feel like that is probably likely to continue and tap into that area all the way up there. So obviously we'd like to see some retrace, maybe some counter trend moves before we get to that target there, but I think overall AU is still on its way to the upside, all the way to at least 0.8, maybe 0.81. So for next week, I do expect to see some retracement now for AUD/USD. As you can see, big push to the upside. We're definitely overextended here, likely to see some retrace. So we could be seeing a retest of that prior resistance now. That price swing high is now will be turned support, so we might see a push back into that level, then see the continuation to the upside. We might actually go and hit 0.8 0.79. So again, we haven't really got there quite just yet. 0.79 is around here. So we might see a bit of retracement, and by the end of the week, we could be looking at around 0.79 potentially. Again, we could see a deep retracement back into this area. Again, prior resistance here, so we could see a move back into there. But again, that could be a really nice place to look to buy, and could see price take off to the upside again and tap into 0.79. So bias is still to the upside for AU. Likely to see some retrace to start the week off, but I still think the bigger move is still to the upside for AU. Now let's take a look at NZD CAD. Okay, so for NZD CAD this week, we saw a bit of a move to the downside. Price was having a hard time moving lower. I did say last week I do expect to see a push to the downside for NZD CAD. As you can see, if I jump to the 4H, we were making some lower highs here in the market. So again, we had a nice double top up there. That was our previous high then, but another lower high, another lower high. So it's looking like we're going to break to the downside. As you can see, we did get a break to the downside. I was thinking that we could potentially tap into this support all the way down here. But as you can see, we didn't quite get there. Price had a bit of a false move. Got back above this support here in the market. So again, really nice support there. Bit of a false breakout, retest it, and then took off to the upside. So the move to the downside turned out to be a false move, and as you can see, we are looking very, very bullish at this point here. So I do expect to see a bit of retrace now to the downside. Again, very overextended to the downside, so you might see a bit of retrace. Could potentially tap back into this support here in the market. So again, we saw a really nice push to the upside, a lot of momentum for the area. So might go and retest that and then see continuation to the upside, because it looks like NZD CAD has failed to break through this key area here in the daily chart. So key level of resistance that I've been talking about for a while now, and we had a bit of a failure to break through it. False breakout to the downside, as you can see in the daily time frame. Nice wick below it, then price pull back above it. So bit of a false breakout. That support is still holding, and looks like price is probably going to continue back to the highs up here. So again, you can see overall still in a bullish trend here. Price is creating higher highs, higher lows, and it looks like we've got another higher low there, and we could be seeing another push to the upside and actually get another high potentially tapping into 0.93, which is all the way up there. So again, probably expecting to see a push to the upside for NZD CAD next week. Likely to see some retrace. There's a possibility we could fall back down, retest the area of support, and then see the move to the upside, because again, the price is very, very choppy in this area, so it could easily find some resistance, see a push to the downside first before going up. But I still think the bigger move for NZD CAD for next week is still to the upside. I think we're going to come back and tap into those highs. Maybe you can create a higher high and tap into 0.93, but bias is still definitely to the upside for NZD CAD as long as we stay above that area. I think the bigger move is back to the highs and maybe potentially a higher high. Next up, we've got GBP NZD. Okay, so for GBP NZD this week, we saw a really nice push to the upside, and then price at the end of the week fell back to the downside. So last week we were in this sort of area here in this consolidation. That was saying it looks like we're going to have a breakout to the upside, because again, not convincing close above this area. Of course, not going to break out. I want to see a nice candle closing above all those wicks there. But as you can see, we were closing above this consolidation box. Nice close there, retest with the bearish candle, and then it looks like the continuation again with that bullish candle there. As you can see, we had a bit of a gap up, and price just continues to the upside. I was saying we'll probably tap into 1.94. As you can see, we tapped into 1.94 quite well. So again, 1.94 is this key area here in the market. Really nice support and resistance all along here. So nice support there, time resistance, or really nice push to the downside. You can see we wicked into 1.94 and got rejected really well to the downside. So for GBP NZD, you had a really nice test of that area. If I jump onto the 4H, you can see we're looking quite bearish now. We have taken out this 4H trend line here in the market, keeping us in that trend to the upside. Nice strong close below it, and the market took off to the downside. So we're likely to see some retrace for GBP NZD, because again, we are quite extended to the downside. Maybe another move back up again, but I think we could be seeing a move to the downside now for GBP NZD, and probably actually see maybe the market tap all the way back into 1.9, which is this key support down here, which is where the trend line started from. And maybe even further and tapping back into this area here, which is where we had the news come in and we saw price take off to the upside. Just because again, on the higher time frames, if I show you on the weekly chart here and zoom out a little bit, it looks like we tapped back into this area of consolidation. So again, we had a really nice consolidation in this area, and as you can see, we broke to the downside very, very well. So a lot of momentum to the downside from this area from a weekly point of view. Looks like we've tapped back into that area, and now we're seeing price actually get rejected from that quite well and actually close bearish. So we have a really nice wick rejection there, and could actually see the next week close bearish there as well. So I think we're going to be seeing a nice move back to the downside for GBP, maybe tapping back into 1.9. Again, that's a nice area of support where we found on the 4H where we had that trend line. So again, if I draw it back in, so I think we're going to see price come all the way back down to where we started here, or maybe even further. But for next week, likely to see a bit of a pullback, because again, the market's quite overextended here. And again, we also are tapping into this support here where we saw a really nice injection to the upside. So likely to see a bit of a retrace to start the week off, maybe give us a lower high. And then I think we're going to see a move to the downside for GBP all the way back to this support here. Again, maybe even further, depending how bearish GBP becomes. But I think the bigger move for GBP is to the downside, likely to see a bit of retrace first, maybe give us a lower high, and then see a nice drop to the downside for GBP for next week. Next, we're going to move on to CAD JPY. Okay, so for CAD JPY this week, as you can see, we took off to the upside. Prices started off the week very, very bullish, big push to the upside. Then we had just a bit of consolidation to end the week off there. So you can see if I go back to the 4H, so again, I did say last week that we do expect to see a move into 83, which is this level here in the market. And you see we just start the market around here, I believe, and you can see we just took off to the upside in the first few hours of the trading week this week, smashed through 83, and as you can see, we kind of had a bit of consolidation around this area here. So price overall on the daily chart is still looking bullish. On the 4H, it looks like we might be seeing a bit of consolidation here in the market. So again, clear resistance there that price is failing to break through. Clear support here, which is also holding price and a move to the upside there. So we might see a push back to the downside this week. In that case, we just have a consolidation, either see a breakout to the upside and just see a continuation there, or a break to the downside and see a bit of retrace, tapping back into this prior resistance where we didn't really get a retest of. So again, we could be seeing a move to the downside, retest this area, and then see the continuation back up, because again, it looks like we do have a bullish trend here on the daily and the weekly time frames. Monthly overall is still bullish. So if I go to the monthly time frame, you can see overall, still bearish, sorry. You can see we are forming those lower highs in the market, and the market is trending to the downside, but we are coming back into that previous swing high here on the monthly. On the weekly, we're not quite there yet. So as you can see, if I draw this out, so I still think might see further continuation to the upside, go and tap into this area, because you can see we did take out this weekly trend line here in the market. So again, if I can hit the recent swing highs here, so again, nice test there, second there, third, looking for a fourth, didn't really get that fourth, and a nice push to the downside. Price just broke through that area. So again, if you break through the trend line, we're likely to come back to the previous swing point, which is this here, the previous swing high. So I think we're going to go and tap into that area, and then from there we could see a nice push to the downside. As you can see, really nice bearish pressure to the downside there. So might tap back into this area around here, around 84 maybe, and then see a nice push to the downside for CAD JPY. So there's a chance that on the 4H we do have that consolidation. There's a chance that we might break to the upside first before coming back down. So again, resistance there, support there. So there's a chance that we might break to the upside first, bit of a range, break to the upside first, and then see the move back down, coming back into this area here. But again, consolidation, we could break out in any direction. We could just see price consolidate for a little bit and then just break to that area there, break to the area down here. So for next week for CAD JPY, expecting to see a bit of consolidation, and just depends which way we break to. If we break to the upside, we're going to come into that 84, and we can test that weekly level, and probably from that point expect to see a bigger move to the downside. If you do take out this swing low here, I do expect to see a move back into this area of resistance, now turn support. So for CAD JPY, just going to be expecting to see a bit of consolidation and just see which way we break, which way we break out of, and that will determine where we're probably going to head for next week. But again, breaks to the upside, expecting to see 84, maybe even higher. Break to the downside, expecting to see a retest of that resistance, now support. Up next is GBP USD. Okay, so for GBP USD this week, again, just had further continuation to the upside as expected. Again, you can see daily time frame very, very bullish, and price is just continuing in that direction. From the higher time frames, you can see why we're having a breakout here on the monthly time frame. So again, all of this was consolidation, key level of resistance all across here. Price finally broke out of it, retested January, and I did say we do expect to see quite a bullish February because of that January candle was just a retest, and as you can see, we're seeing that continuation to the upside. We're seeing the true breakout here on the monthly time frame. So I do expect for us to get to 1.42, which is this resistance up here. Again, I do actually expect us to take out for 1.42 and see some new highs actually, just because again it looks like we're finding a bit of a bottom here for GBP USD. Again, really nice support there, test it again, failure to break through it. Looks like we're seeing a break to the upside. So again, I do expect to see price probably take out that recent swing high there. So for GBP USD, expect to see it move to 1.42, could be even a lot higher from a monthly point of view. If I go to the daily, you can see we're still looking very bullish here. Likely to see some retrace now because again the market is a little bit overextended. Around here you can see it was very choppy, but wasn't really overextended, just a lot of areas of support and resistance where we could easily look to take the market higher, rather than now we're quite overextended to the upside. So we're likely to see a bit of retrace, but I think price is still overall on its way to go and test 1.42. So again, if I jump to the 4H, you can see last week I said I probably expect price to get to 1.39 this week, which is around here. And as you can see, we smashed straight through that level, saw a bit of retrace, and now we've actually made it all the way up to 1.4 here. So price is still looking bullish here. Going to be expecting to see some retrace. We might even see a move back into this level here and have a bit of a deeper retracement. So a really key level of support where we saw a lot of momentum to the upside. So could see a bit of a deeper retrace, maybe back into that level, and then from there could see it just further continuation, and next target will probably be 1.41 or maybe even that 1.42 from a monthly time frame basis. So price is still to the upside for GBP USD as long as we stay above this key support here. This is our previous swing low in the market there. So as long as we stay above that area, expect to see further continuation to the upside for GBP USD, since the pound right now is still very, very strong. So likely to see a bit of a deeper retracement to start the week off, just because we're a bit overextended on the daily, but I still think further movement to the upside for GBP USD for next week. And next we're going to see what's happening with GBP CAD. Okay, so for GBP CAD this week, as you can see, further continuation to the upside. I did say last week that I do expect to see 1.77 tapped into for next week, for this week for GBP CAD. As you can see, 1.77 is this level here, and as you can see, we smashed straight through that level, and price was very, very bullish this week. So we just maintained this overall quite corrective, very choppy price action. So again, nice trend line there in the market. Price was just respecting that level, found support from this level, and just took off to the upside. So price is still very, very bullish here for GBP CAD. Again, right now you can see we broke out this consolidation here. So this was just a bit of consolidation above 1.77, broke to the downside. So overall looking bearish now, breaking to the downside. So again, expecting to see some retrace because we were quite overextended there with those two very big bullish candles to the upside. So we're likely to see a bit of retracement there. So I think as long as we stay above this trend line, we keep respecting it, we're likely to see another push to the upside. I think for GBP CAD, my target next is putting me this 1.78 level, which is all the way up here. So again, if I tap into the higher time frames, you can see why. So again, you can see we're starting to trend to the upside now. Price has definitely found support all across here on the weekly time frame. So again, all across here, price is failing to break through that area. As you can see, we're starting to trend to the upside because we're failing to break through that area. So it looks like price is going to break to the upside, and I do think we're going to go and test all these wicks up here. So this is the 1.78 level that I was describing on the 4H. As you can see, a nice wick into that level there, rejected to the downside, wick into that level, rejected to the downside. So I think for next week we're going to see a continuation to go and test the 1.78. Overall, I think we're going to go and fill this whole wick to the upside and go test 1.8. But again, that will take more than a couple, maybe like 5 or 6 weeks to get there. But I still think for GBP CAD, the trend is now to the upside here. I do expect to see further continuation to the upside for this pair. again all the way up to 1.8, which is all the way up there. So right now it looks like we are retracing now for GP CAD. Again, draw this trend line in. As long as we stay above it, we're probably going to see further continuation to the upside, so likely to see a bounce, then another push to the upside into 1.79, and then gradually probably work our way higher. We could see maybe a deeper retracement for this pair, slight break of the trend line, maybe retest this support here. As you can see, a lot of momentum to the upside, so could easily see another push back into here, false break of the trend line, then see the push. But for me, as long as we stay above this key level here for GP CAD for next week, only expecting to see further continuation to the upside for this pair. Get below that level, we might see a deeper retracement and then see the continuation. But again, as long as we stay above that level, I'm expecting to see the bigger move to the upside for GP CAD and maybe tap into 1.78. And up next, we're going to take a look at gold. Okay, so for gold this week, we saw a really nice push to the downside. Last week I was saying that potentially could actually get a move in the opposite direction to the upside if we stay above this area. As you see, we got a close below that support, again really key support. I was anticipating that to be a bit of a false breakout, and we see price take off to the upside. But as you can see, we got a close back below that area, and from that close, price just took off to the downside. So price is looking very, very bearish for gold here. We're tapping back into these lows. In fact, actually worked a bit lower. So I'm looking to see a bit of a retracement now to the upside. As you can see, a bit of bullish price action there on the daily time frame. Quite overextended to the downside, so might even see a push back into that same level. Then actually could see price maybe fall back to the downside again, but I'm not too sure if you will take out that support there, because again, it's a very strong area of support there in the market. As you can see, when we were here last time, we saw a really big push to the upside all the way back into this level. So we could actually potentially see price hold this area. We could actually see price eventually get back to the highs all the way up there potentially. Then at that point might actually see a breakout to the upside. But if we do hold this support here on the daily time frame, I do think gold could be on its way up for a longer push. We do have this trend line here intact as well, so could see a nice push to the upside. If we do hold that area for next week, and let's push the upside back into this trend line sort of area, and then might see another continuation back to the downside, tapping into that trend line and also into this support as well. So I think we'll see a push to the upside to start for gold for next week. If you do hold this area, of course, there's a chance that it might just open and just take off to the downside and take out that low. That is still very possible. But if you do hold this area, which it does look like price is doing, we probably see a nice push to the upside, tap back into this level, which is now going to be at the resistance, maybe even to the trend line as well. They might see price roll over, because again, the structure is still pointing to the downside for gold. But if you do see a nice push breaking above that resistance now, breaking above that trend line and holding, I think we'll probably take a really nice push to the upside all the way back up to 1950 and maybe even higher. And at that point, gold will look very, very bullish at that point. But right now, price is still bearish. Probably see a bit of retracement after this push to the downside, see a bit of retracement, tap back into that level, back into that trend line, and probably roll over back to the downside again. But if we do get it back above it and hold, I think we're all on way to 1950. So for next week, biases to the upside to start off, and I think we could roll over back again to the downside. And last but not least, we've got Bitcoin. And finally, now we have Bitcoin. So for this week, Bitcoin continued to the upside. As you can see, we pushed past 50,000 actually, sorry, there in the market. We were here last time I was analyzing this pair in this range a little bit. As you can see, broke to the upside, came back inside of it, retested, and then continued to the upside, breaking to that 50,000 mark there, and now we're pushing up a lot further. So Bitcoin again still very, very bullish, as you can see, creating those high highs, higher lows. Again, a little bit overextended here, but I do think we'll probably eventually tap into 60,000 area, which is this level here. So I do think we're on our way to test that area. Possibility you could see a bit of a deeper retrace, because again, we're starting to lose momentum. You can see some bearish candles coming in there, wicks to the upside, so price is obviously losing momentum. So if we were to see price fall to the downside a little bit, maybe tap back into this previous area of resistance, now turn support, and then could easily see a continuation back to the upside, because again, Bitcoin is still on its way up currently, and you can see very, very bullish price action from the 4-hourly, daily, weekly, all the time frames are still very much to the upside. So still very much to the upside for Bitcoin right now. Again, a little bit overextended, so there's a chance we might fall to the downside first, maybe come back and retest 50,000 or retest that resistance turn support, and then see price shoot off again to the upside for Bitcoin all the way up to 60,000. So bias is still to the upside for Bitcoin. I think we're on our way to 60,000. Might see a bit of retracement first because again a little bit of extended here, but I think we're still going to find support and take off to the upside again and probably reach that 60,000 mark there for Bitcoin. Okay, so that is the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it and found it useful. If you have any questions, agree or disagree with my analysis, just drop it down in the comments. I'll make sure I'll get back to you. But thanks for watching, and until the next one, I'll see you guys later.